The laughter echoed across the dusty town square, like vultures circling carrion. Lily May. Thornton felt the cold mud seep through her Sunday dress as she struggled to push herself up from the filthy street, her palms burning from the rough gravel embedded in the muck. The three daughters of Mayor Blackwood stood above her, their pristine white gloves still stained with the dirt they'd used to shove her down. "That's what happens when trash thinks it can walk among decent folk," sneered Victoria Blackwood, the eldest daughter, her voice dripping with venom. "Your father's debts don't make you welcome at our church social." Lily May's cheeks burned with humiliation as the crowd gathered, their whispers cutting deeper than any blade. She'd saved for months to afford the pale blue fabric for this dress, working extra hours at the general store, dreaming of the day she might finally feel like she belonged in Copper Ridge. Now that dream lay shattered in the mud beneath her. Her father had been the town drunk before consumption took him last winter, leaving behind nothing but debts and shame. The Blackwoods owned half the town, including the bank that held the mortgage on her tiny cabin. Everyone knew Lily May was living on borrowed time, but she'd held her head high, determined to prove she was more than her father's legacy. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the crowd's murmurs. "I just wanted to what?" Victoria's sister, Margaret, stepped closer, her silk shoes stopping inches from Lily May's outstretched hand. "Wanted to pretend you're one of us? Your kind doesn't belong here." The crowd pressed closer, their faces a mixture of pity and disgust. Lily May felt tears threatening to spill as she tried once more to stand, her legs shaking from both the cold and the crushing weight of their judgment. The mud clung to her like the town's whispers would cling to her reputation. Then she heard the slow, deliberate sound of spurs clicking against the wooden boardwalk. The crowd began to part, their chatter dying to nervous murmurs. Lily May looked up through her tangled hair to see a figure approaching, backlit by the afternoon sun. She couldn't make out his face, but his presence commanded attention in a way that made even the Blackwood sisters step back. Well, Victoria said, her voice taking on a different tone entirely. "Look what the wind blew in." The stranger's boots stopped directly in front of Lily May, and she found herself staring at worn leather and silver spurs that caught the light like stars. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she waited for another judgment, another humiliation to add to her collection. But instead of words, she saw a hand extended toward her, calloused, strong, with dirt under the nails that spoke of honest work rather than cruelty. The hand didn't waver, didn't hesitate, even as the crowd held its collective breath. "Ma'am," came a voice like whiskey and smoke, deep and steady. "Let me help you up." Lily May stared at the outstretched hand, her mind reeling. In her 22 years in Copper Ridge, no one had ever offered her help without expecting something in return. The calloused palm remained steady, patient, as if its owner had all the time in the world. She lifted her eyes to meet his face and felt her breath catch. He was older than her, perhaps 30, with sun-weathered skin and eyes the color of storm clouds. A scar ran from his left temple down to his jaw, and his dark hair needed a trim. But there was something in his expression that made her chest tighten. Kindness, genuine and unguarded. "I said, let me help you up," he repeated, his voice cutting through the crowd's whispers like a blade through silk. Lily May placed her muddy hand in his, feeling the strength in his grip as he pulled her to her feet with effortless grace. The mud squelched beneath her shoes, but she stood straight, her dignity slowly returning under his steady gaze. "Thank you," she whispered, acutely aware of how she must look, hair disheveled, dress ruined, mud streaking her face. "Name's Jake Sullivan," he said, not letting go of her hand. "And you are?" "Lily May Thornton," she replied, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. "Well, Miss Thornton, seems like you've had yourself a rough afternoon." Jake's eyes never left hers, completely ignoring the crowd that pressed closer, hungry for drama. Victoria Blackwood stepped forward, her face flushed with indignation. "Mr. Sullivan, I don't think you understand the situation here. This girl, this lady," Jake corrected, his voice turning cold as winter steel, "appears to have fallen. Now, I may be new in town, but where I come from, we don't stand around watching when someone needs help." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Lily May noticed how Jake positioned himself slightly in front of her, his body language protective without being possessive. She'd never had anyone stand up for her before. "The Thornton family has a reputation in this town," Margaret Blackwood chimed in, her voice shrill. "Their debts are none of your concern," Jake interrupted, his gray eyes flashing dangerously. "Unless you're the banker, which last I checked, you're not." Mayor Blackwood himself pushed through the crowd, his face red with exertion and anger. "Now see here, stranger. I don't know who you think you are, but I'm the new foreman at the Double R Ranch," Jake said quietly, but his words carried across the square like a gunshot. "Seems like I'll be in town for quite a while." The crowd's murmur grew louder. The Double R was the biggest ranch in 3 counties, and their foreman carried considerable weight in local affairs. Lily May felt the shift in the atmosphere, the way people suddenly looked at Jake with new respect and fear. "Now," Jake continued, his arm moving to steady Lily May as she swayed slightly, "Miss Thornton needs to get cleaned up and out of these wet clothes before she catches her death. Anyone got a problem with that?" The silence stretched like a taut wire. Even the Blackwood sisters seemed to have lost their tongues. "Good," Jake said, his voice returning to its earlier warmth. He looked down at Lily May, his expression gentle. "My horse is tied up at the saloon. Can you walk that far?" Lily May nodded, not trusting her voice. As they began to move through the crowd, she felt Jake's hand rest lightly on her back, not pushing, just supporting. The crowd parted before them like water before a ship's bow. "This isn't over," Victoria hissed as they passed. Jake stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression pleasant but his eyes hard as granite. "You're right, Miss Blackwood, it's not. But next time, it might go differently for you." The ride to Jake's cabin passed in comfortable silence. Lily May sitting sideways on his horse, her ruined dress spread carefully to avoid the saddle. She'd expected him to take her home. But when she'd quietly given him directions to her father's old place, he'd shaken his head. "That cabin's been empty too long," he'd said simply. "You'll catch pneumonia in those wet clothes before you can get a proper fire going." Now, as they approached a small but well-maintained log cabin nestled in a grove of cottonwoods, Lily May felt a mixture of gratitude and apprehension. She'd never been alone with a man before, and certainly not one who'd just upended her entire world with a single act of kindness. Jake dismounted first, then reached up to help her down. His hand spanned her waist easily, and for a moment, as her feet touched the ground, she was acutely aware of how close they stood. She could smell leather and sage on his clothes, see the flecks of gold in his gray eyes. "Come on," he said, stepping back and gesturing toward the cabin. "Let's get you warmed up." The interior was sparse, but clean: a stone fireplace, a simple wooden table, a bed in the corner covered with a worn quilt. Jake moved with practiced efficiency, building up the fire while Lily May stood dripping in the doorway, suddenly conscious of the impropriety of her situation. "I should go," she said quietly. "People will talk." Jake paused in his fire building, looking at her over his shoulder. "People are already talking. Question is, do you care more about their opinions or your health?" The fire caught with a satisfying crackle, and warmth began to spread through the small space. Jake stood and moved to a wooden chest in the corner, pulling out a thick wool blanket and what looked like a clean shirt. "Bedroom's through there," he said, nodding toward a door she hadn't noticed. "You can change, and I'll heat some water for tea. Your dress can dry by the fire." Lily May took the offered clothes, her fingers brushing his briefly. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through her, and she saw something flicker in his eyes, a recognition, perhaps, of the same electric current. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, needing to understand. Jake was quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the fire. "I know what it's like to be alone," he said finally. "To have people look at you and see only what they think you are, not who you really are. And who am I, really?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. He turned to face her fully, and the intensity in his expression made her breath catch. "You're someone who saved for months to buy a dress just to feel like she belonged. Someone who held her head high even when they pushed her down. Someone who's stronger than she knows." Tears threatened again, but this time they were different. Tears of humiliation, but of something she couldn't quite name. No one had ever seen her that way before. "I'll be right outside," Jake said gently. "Take your time." When she emerged, Jake was standing by the fire, stirring something in a pot. He looked up as she entered, and his expression softened. "Better?" he asked. "Better," she confirmed, settling into the chair he'd placed by the fire. "Thank you for everything." Jake poured tea into 2 chipped mugs and handed her one. "Don't thank me yet. I have a feeling this is just the beginning." The tea was strong and sweet, warming Lily May from the inside out as she curled deeper into the chair. Jake sat across from her on a simple wooden stool, his long legs stretched toward the fire, and for the first time in years, she felt truly safe. "Tell me about the Double R," she said, wanting to fill the comfortable silence with something other than the questions. burning in her chest. Jake's mouth quirked in what might have been a smile. Biggest ranch in 3 counties. Like I said, owner's a widow named Ruth Callahan, toughest woman I've ever met. Lost her husband 5 years ago and has been running things herself since. And she hired you. She did. Jake stared into his tea, his expression growing distant. I was drifting through, looking for work. Most folks took one look at this scar and decided I was trouble they didn't need. Lily May's eyes traced the line of the scar, wondering what had caused it, but not daring to ask, but not Mrs. Callahan. Ruth asked me 3 questions. Could I work cattle? Could I handle men? And could I be trusted with her ranch while she was in Denver visiting her sister? Jake's smile was genuine now. I answered yes to all 3. And she hired me on the spot. Just like that. Just like that. Jake met her eyes. Sometimes you have to take a chance on people, especially when everyone else has written them off. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Lily May felt her cheeks warm, knowing he was talking about more than just his job. What about you? Jake asked. What's your story, Lily May Thornton? She almost laughed at the question. What story? I'm the town drunk's daughter, remember? The girl who works at the general store and can't pay her father's debts. That's what other people see, Jake said quietly. I asked what your story was. The firelight danced across his features. And Lily May found herself wanting to tell him everything about the dreams she'd packed away when her father started drinking. About the books she read by candlelight. About the way she'd always felt, like she was waiting for someone, to see her as more than Copper Ridge's charity case. I wanted to be a teacher once, she said finally. Before Papa got sick, before the debts. I had almost enough saved to go to the normal school. In Denver, what happened? Life happened. Papa needed medicine, then food, then she shrugged, the familiar weight of disappointment settling on her shoulders. Dreams don't pay bills. Jake leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Who says they can't? Everyone. Everything. The world doesn't care about the dreams of poor girls from nowhere towns. The world's a bigger place than Copper Ridge, Jake said. And you're more than what this town thinks you are. Lily May set down her empty mug, suddenly restless. Easy words to say when you're not the one living them. You think I don't know about impossible dreams? Jake's voice carried an edge she hadn't heard before. You think I ended up here because everything went according to plan? She looked at him, really looked, and saw something in his eyes, old and deep. What happened to you? Jake was quiet for so long, she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I had a ranch once. Down in Texas. Built it from nothing. Worked myself half to death, making it profitable. Had a woman I loved. Planned to marry her come spring. He paused, his hands clenched around his mug. But her father didn't think a poor cowboy was good enough for his daughter. Lily May's heart clenched. Jake, ... He hired men to burn me out. Torched the barn, ran off the cattle, beat me near to death and left me for dead. His hand moved unconsciously to his scar. By the time I healed up, she was married to a banker's son. And I was just another drifter with nothing but the clothes on my back. I'm sorry, Lily May whispered, meaning it. Point is, Jake continued, his voice growing stronger. I know what it's like to have people decide you're not worth their time. But I also know that sometimes, if you're lucky, you get a second chance. Their eyes met across the small space, and Lily May felt something shift inside her chest, a recognition, a connection that went deeper than shared misfortune. Is that what this is? She asked softly. A second chance. Jake stood and moved to the window, looking out at the darkening sky. I don't know yet, but I'd like to find out. Lily May woke to the sound of rain against the windows and the smell of coffee and bacon. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then the events of the previous day came flooding back. She was in Jake's bedroom, wrapped in his quilt, wearing his shirt. The impropriety of it should have scandalized her, but instead, she felt oddly content. She'd fallen asleep in the chair by the fire, and Jake must have carried her to bed. The thought made her cheeks burn, but there was something tender about the gesture that made her heart skip. Morning, Jake's voice came from the doorway, and she turned to see him holding a cup of coffee. He was already dressed, his hair damp from washing, and he looked as if he'd been up for hours. Good morning, she replied, sitting up and accepting the coffee gratefully. What time is it? Near 8. I'll let you sleep. You looked like you needed it. Lily May realized with a start that she'd slept better than she had in months. No nightmares about debt collectors or her father's ghost, just deep, peaceful sleep. I should get home, she said, though she made no move to leave the warm bed. In this weather, Jake nodded toward the window, where rain was coming down in sheets. You'd catch your death. People will talk. People are already talking, remember. Jake's tone was gentle but firm. Besides, I rode into town early this morning. Picked up some things from the general store. Lily May looked at him in surprise. You went to town. Figured you might need some clothes that actually fit. Jake gestured toward the foot of the bed, where a brown paper package sat. Mrs. Henderson at the store was more than happy to help. Once they explained the situation, Lily May's throat tightened. Jake, I can't afford already taken care of, he said quietly. Consider it a loan if it makes you feel better. She stared at him, overwhelmed by his kindness. Why are you doing this? Jake was quiet for a moment, his gray eyes serious. Because someone should. Because you deserve better than what this town's given you. And because he paused, seeming to weigh his words. Because I care about what happens to you. The simple statement hit her like a physical blow. When was the last time anyone had cared about what happened to her? I should tell you, Jake continued, that I also had a conversation with Mayor Blackwood. Lily May's blood ran cold. What kind of conversation? The kind where I explained that his daughter's behavior yesterday was unacceptable, and that if I hear of them bothering you again, there will be consequences. Jake, you can't. The Blackwoods practically own this town. They own the bank and some businesses, Jake said calmly. They don't own the people, and they sure as hell don't own me. Lily May set down her coffee with trembling hands. You don't understand. They can make your life very difficult. Let them try. Jake's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. I've dealt with worse than small-town bullies. This isn't your fight. Jake moved closer to the bed, his expression intense. Isn't it? Someone I care about was hurt, humiliated, treated like dirt. That makes it my fight. Someone you care about, Lily May repeated softly. Yes. Jake's voice was barely above a whisper. Someone I care about very much. The air between them crackled with tension, and Lily May felt her pulse quicken. She'd never been looked at the way Jake was looking at her, like she was precious, like she mattered. I'm scared, she admitted. Of what? Of hoping. Of believing that things could be different. Of caring about someone who might leave. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. Jake sat on the edge of the bed, careful to maintain a respectful distance. I'm not going anywhere, Lily May. I've spent the last 5 years running from my past, but I'm done running. I want to build something here, something that matters. With me, if you'll have me. Lily May looked at this man who'd appeared in her life, like an answer to a prayer she'd never dared to pray. He was offering her everything she'd ever wanted. Respect, protection. Lavonda terrified her. I don't know how to be cared for, she whispered. Jake's smile was gentle. Then we'll figure it out together, if you're willing to try. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing the world clean. Inside the small cabin, Lily May felt something inside her chest, unfurling like a flower toward the sun. Yes, she said quietly. I'm willing to try. The following weeks passed in a blur of quiet moments and growing intimacy. Jake had installed Lily May in Mrs. Patterson's boarding house, paying her rent in advance despite her protests, and visited her every evening after work. They would walk the outskirts of town, talking about everything and nothing, building a foundation of trust that felt both fragile and unshakable. Lily May returned to work at the general store, but things had changed. People looked at her differently, now some with newfound respect, others with barely concealed resentment. The Blackwood sisters no longer spoke to her directly, but their whispered conversations followed her wherever she went. They're planning something, Lily May told Jake one evening as they sat by the creek that ran behind the boarding house. I can feel it. Jake skipped a stone across the water's surface, his expression thoughtful. Let them plan. Planning's not the same as doing. You don't know them like I do. They can't stand that someone stood up to them. And you don't know me like you think you do, Jake replied, his voice gentle but firm. I've dealt with worse than the Blackwood girls. Lily May studied his profile in the fading light. There was so much about Jake she didn't know: his past, his scars, the shadows that sometimes crossed his face when he thought she wasn't looking. But there was also something solid about him, something that made her feel safe in a way she'd never experienced before. Tell me about your family, she said suddenly. Jake's hand stilled on the stone he'd been about to throw. Not much to tell. Parents died when I was 16. Older brother raised me until I was old enough to make my own way. Where is he now? Dead. The word was flat, emotionless. Died in the war. I'm sorry. Jake shrugged. but Lily May could see the pain in the set of his shoulders. Long time ago, they sat in comfortable silence, watching the water flow past. Lily May wanted to ask more questions, but she sensed Jake's need for privacy. Everyone had wounds that were too tender to touch. Mrs. Callahan wants to meet you, Jake said eventually. Lily May's stomach fluttered with nerves. She does. I've told her about you. She's curious about the woman who's captured her foreman's attention. Captured your attention. Lily May couldn't hide her smile. Jake turned to face her, his gray eyes serious. Completely. The word hung between them, heavy with implication. They'd been dancing around their feelings for weeks, sharing stolen glances and accidental touches, but neither had been brave enough to voice what was growing between them. Jake, Lily May began, but he shook his head. I know what you're going to say. That it's too soon. That you're not ready. That people will talk. But I need you to know that what I feel for you isn't going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. Lily May felt tears prick her eyes. How can you be so sure? Because I've never felt this way before. Not even. He paused, and she knew he was thinking of the woman in Texas. What I feel for you is different, deeper, like coming home after being lost for a very long time. I feel it too, Lily May whispered. But I'm terrified. Of what? Of ruining it. Of not being enough. Of Jake's hands cupped her face, his thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. You are enough. More than enough. You're everything. When he kissed her, it was soft and sweet and full of promise. Lily May had been kissed before, stolen kisses from boys who saw her as an easy target. But this was different. This was Jake seeing her, really seeing her, and choosing her anyway. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. I love you, Jake said simply. Lily May's heart hammered against her ribs. I love you too. The words felt like a prayer, like a promise, like the beginning of something beautiful and terrifying and absolutely right. Will you come to dinner at the ranch tomorrow? Jake asked. Meet Mrs. Callahan. Lily May nodded, not trusting her voice. Good. Jake stood and offered her his hand. Because I have a feeling she's going to love you almost as much as I do. As they walked back to the boarding house, Lily May felt something she hadn't experienced in years: hope. Real, tangible hope that her life could be different. That she could be different. She didn't see the figure watching from the shadows. Didn't notice the way Victoria Blackwood's eyes glittered with malice as she observed their tender moment. By the creek, the storm was coming, but for now, in Jake's arms, Lily May felt nothing but sunshine. The dinner at the Double R Ranch was everything Lily May had hoped it would be. Ruth Callahan was a formidable woman in her 50s, with silver hair and kind eyes that missed nothing. She welcomed Lily May with genuine warmth, and over a meal of roast beef and fresh vegetables, they talked about books, dreams, and the future. Jake tells me you wanted to be a teacher, Ruth said as they cleared the dishes. Once upon a time, Lily May replied, helping stack plates, before life got in the way. Life has a way of doing that, Ruth observed. But dreams have a way of coming back around when you least expect them. Jake, who had been listening from the kitchen doorway, stepped forward. Actually, Ruth and I have been talking about that. Lily May looked between them, confused. About what? The school district is looking for someone to teach the children of ranch hands and homesteaders who live too far out to attend the town school, Ruth explained. It's not a traditional teaching position, but it pays well and comes with a cabin on the property. Lily May's heart began to race. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a chance, Ruth said gently. If you want it. Lily May looked at Jake, who was watching her with an expression of barely contained hope. Did you arrange this? I mentioned that you were qualified, Jake said carefully. The decision was Ruth's. And mine, Ruth added. I've been looking for the right person for months. Someone who understands what it's like to struggle, who won't look down on these families just because they don't have much. Lily May felt tears threaten. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Jake said softly. Say you'll take the chance. Yes, Lily May whispered, then louder. Yes, I'll take it. Ruth's smile was radiant. Wonderful. You can start Monday if you'd like. The cabin's been empty for months, but Jake and some of the men can help you get it ready. The ride back to town was quiet, both of them lost in their own thoughts. When they reached the boarding house, Jake helped Lily May down from the wagon, his hands lingering on her waist. Are you happy? He asked. I'm terrified, Lily May admitted. But yes, I'm happy. Good, because I have something else to ask you. Lily May looked up at him, noting the nervous tension in his voice. What is it? Jake took a deep breath. Lily May Thornton, Would you do me the honor of being my wife? The world seemed to stop. Lily May stared at him, her heart hammering so hard she was sure he could hear it. Are you proposing to me? She whispered. I am. Jake's voice was steady, but his eyes held a vulnerability that made her chest ache. I know it's fast. I know people will talk, but I don't care. I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life showing you how much you mean to me. Jake, ... I don't have a ring yet, he continued, but I have a steady job, a future, and a heart that's completely yours. If you'll have me. Lily May looked at this man who had changed her life in every way that mattered. 3 weeks ago, she'd been face down in the mud, broken and humiliated. Now she was standing in front of the man she loved, being offered everything she'd ever dreamed of. Yes, she said, her voice strong and clear. Yes, I'll marry you. Jake's smile was brighter than the sun. He swept her into his arms, spinning her around until she was laughing and breathless. I love you, he whispered against her ear. I love you too, she replied, meaning it with every fiber of her being. They were so caught up in their joy that neither of them noticed the small crowd that had gathered across the street, or the way Mayor Blackwood's face had gone purple with rage. This is not acceptable, he hissed to his daughters. That girl is not going to marry her way out of her debts. Victoria's smile was sharp as a blade. Don't worry, Papa, I have a plan. The celebration was about to become a battle, but for now, in Jake's arms, Lily May felt nothing but pure, overwhelming happiness. The news of Jake and Lily May's engagement spread through Copper Ridge like wildfire. By the time Lily May arrived at the general store the next morning, the whispers had already begun. Some people offered congratulations, but others looked at her with suspicion and barely concealed hostility. Moving up in the world, aren't we? Mrs. Davidson said, when Lily May handed her change for a sack of flour. Funny how quickly things can change for some people. Lily May forced a smile. I suppose they can. Just remember, Mrs. Davidson continued, her voice dropping to a whisper, what goes up fast can come down just as quick. The warning settled uneasily in Lily May's stomach, but she pushed it aside. She was happy, truly happy. For the first time in years, she wouldn't let small-town gossip poison that dot. But as the day wore on, the comments grew sharper, more pointed. By lunch, Lily May was beginning to understand that the Blackwoods had been busy spreading their own version of recent events. Is it true you've been living in sin with that cowboy? Mrs. Fletcher asked, her voice loud enough for the entire store to hear. Lily May's cheeks burned. I've been staying at Mrs. Patterson's boarding house. That's not what I heard, Mrs. Fletcher replied with a sniff. I heard you spend the night at his cabin, alone. I was caught in the rain, Lily May said firmly. Mr. Sullivan was being a gentleman. Is that what they're calling it these days? Victoria Blackwood's voice cut through the store like a knife. She stood in the doorway, her sisters flanking her like soldiers. How interesting. Lily May's blood ran cold. Miss Blackwood, Miss Thornton, or should I say, future Mrs. Sullivan. Victoria's smile was sharp and cold. Congratulations on your engagement. How, ... sudden. Thank you, Lily May said carefully. Victoria moved closer, her silk skirts rustling against the wooden floor. I do hope Mr. Sullivan knows what he's getting into. Marriage is such a serious commitment, don't you think? Especially when one party has so many ... complications. I don't know what you mean, don't you? Victoria's voice was honey over poison. I had the most interesting conversation with Mr. Peterson at the bank yesterday. Did you know your father's debts are coming due next month? The full amount. All at once. Lily May's heart stopped. That's impossible. The bank agreed to monthly payments. The bank agreed to monthly payments with your father, Victoria corrected. But he's dead, isn't he? And his debts have passed to you. In full, the store had gone completely silent. Lily May felt the weight of every stare, every whispered judgment. How much? She whispered. $800, Victoria said with obvious relish. Plus interest. Due in 30 days, or the bank will foreclose on your father's property. $800. It might as well have been $8,000. Lily May's knees nearly buckled. Of course, Victoria continued, I'm sure your cowboy will be happy to pay your debts. After all, what's money when you're in love? The implication was clear that Lily May was marrying Jake for his money, that she was nothing but a fortune hunter. The accusations hit her like physical blows. That's not Lily May started, but Victoria cut her off. Not what? Not why you're marrying him? How convenient that he appeared just when you needed him most. How fortunate that he's wealthy enough to save you from your father's shame. Stop, Lily May whispered. The truth hurts, doesn't it? Victoria's voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. But I'm sure the good people of Copper Ridge deserve to know what kind of woman their precious cowboy is really marrying. Lily May felt the walls closing in around her. Every eye in the store was on her, every face filled with judgment and suspicion. The happiness she'd felt just hours ago crumbled to dust. I have to go, she whispered, pushing past Victoria toward the door. Running away won't change the truth. Victoria called after her. Your debts will still be there when you get back. And so will everyone who knows what you really are. Lily May burst through the door and into the afternoon sun, her chest heaving with panic. $800. Where would she ever find $800? And what would Jake think when he learned the truth that she came with debts that would bankrupt him, that marrying her would ruin him financially? She ran blindly through the streets, her vision blurred with tears, until she found herself at the creek where Jake had proposed just the night before. She collapsed on the bank, sobbing into her hands. Lily May. Jake's voice was gentle but concerned. She looked up to see him approaching, his face etched with worry. What's wrong? Mrs. Patterson said you ran out of the store like your dress was on fire. You shouldn't be here, she said, wiping her eyes. People will talk. People are already talking, Jake said, sitting beside her. That's not what matters. What matters is why you're crying. Lily May looked at this man she loved more than life itself, and felt her heart break all over again. I can't marry you. Jake went very still. What? I can't marry you, Jake. I'm sorry, but I can't. Why? His voice was barely above a whisper. Last night you said yes. You said you loved me. I do love you, Lily May said, fresh tears streaming down her face. That's why I can't marry you. I won't drag you down with me. What are you talking about? My father's debts. They're coming due. $800, Jake. $800 that I don't have and can't possibly earn. If I don't pay, they'll take everything. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Is that what this is about? Money. It's about what people will think, what they'll say. That I'm marrying you for your money. That I'm nothing but a fortune hunter, using you to pay my debts. And you care what they think? I care what you think, Lily May said fiercely. I care that you'll always wonder if I said yes, because I love you, or because I needed to be saved. Jake stood and paced to the water's edge, his hands clenched at his sides. So you're going to make that decision for me? You're going to decide what I think and feel. I'm trying to protect you. From what? From loving you. From building a life with you. Jake turned to face her, his gray eyes blazing. I don't need protecting, Lily May. I need you. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, Jake interrupted. Victoria Blackwood got to you. She filled your head with poison, and you're letting her win. This isn't about Victoria, isn't it? Jake knelt in front of her, his hands framing her face. Look at me, Lily May. Really look at me. Do you see a man who would marry you for any reason other than love? No, she whispered. Do you see a man who cares about $800 more than he cares about spending the rest of his life with you? No. Then why are you letting her tear us apart? Lily May closed her eyes, feeling the weight of his words. Because I'm scared. Because I've never had anything good in my life, and I'm terrified of losing it. You won't lose it, Jake said, softly. Not if you don't let go. But the money will be handled. We'll figure it out together, like we're going to figure out everything else. Jake's thumbs brushed away her tears. I have some savings, and Ruth offered to help if needed. The money isn't the problem, Lily May. The problem is that you don't trust me to love you through this. I do trust you. Then prove it. Marry me anyway. Let me love you through the hard times as well as the good ones. Lily May looked into his eyes and saw nothing but love, steadfast and true. What if people think? Let them think what they want. I know the truth, and so do you. That's all that matters. For a long moment, they sat in silence, the only sound the gentle babbling of the creek. Then Lily May took a shaky breath. I love you, she said. I love you too. I want to marry you. Jake's smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. Then that's what we'll do. Tomorrow, if you'll have me. Tomorrow. Why wait? We've wasted enough time listening to other people's opinions. I want you to be my wife, Lily May. I want to start our life together. Lily May thought about Victoria's threats, about the debt hanging over her head, about all the reasons this was a terrible idea. Then she thought about Jake's steady presence, his unwavering love, his promise to face whatever came together. Yes, she said firmly. Tomorrow. The small church was nearly empty when Lily May arrived the next morning. wearing her mother's wedding dress, the one thing of value her father had never sold. Ruth Callahan had spent the night altering it to fit, her skilled hands working by lamplight to ensure Lily May looked like the bride she deserved to be. "You look beautiful," Ruth whispered, adjusting the pearl buttons on the dress's sleeve. "Absolutely radiant." Lily May touched the small bouquet of wildflowers Jake had picked for her that morning. "I still can't believe this is happening." "Believe it," Ruth said firmly. "You deserve this happiness. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." The church door opened, and Pastor Williams entered, followed by Jake. Lily May's breath caught at the sight of him freshly shaved, wearing a clean white shirt and black suit coat, his hair combed back and his eyes shining with love. "Ready?" he asked, taking her hand. "Ready," she confirmed. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. Pastor Williams spoke of love and commitment, of facing life's challenges together, of the sacred bond between husband and wife. When it came time for vows, Jake's voice was steady and clear. "Lily May, I promise to love you through whatever comes. To stand by you when the world stands against you. To see you not as others see you, but as you truly are, beautiful, strong, and worthy of every good thing." Lily May's own vows were simpler but no less meaningful. "Jake, I promise to trust in your love. To let you stand with me instead of facing everything alone. To build a life with you that's bigger than either of us could have imagined." "You may kiss your bride," Pastor Williams said with a smile. Jake's kiss was soft and sweet, a promise of all the kisses to come. When they broke apart, Lily May felt tears of joy streaming down her face. "Mrs. Sullivan," Jake said softly, testing the name. "Mrs. Sullivan," she repeated, loving the sound of it. They signed the marriage certificate with Ruth and Pastor Williams as witnesses, then stepped outside into the bright morning sun. Lily May expected to find the street empty, but instead, she saw a small crowd gathered across from the church. Mayor Blackwood stood in the center, his face purple with rage. Beside him, Victoria and her sisters whispered among themselves, their expressions venomous. But there were others, two Mrs. Patterson from the boarding house, some of the ranch hands from the Double R, even a few townspeople who had always been kind to Lily May. "Well," Jake said quietly, "looks like word got out." "Mrs. Sullivan," Mayor Blackwood called out, his voice dripping with false politeness. "Congratulations on your marriage. I do hope your husband knows what he's taken on." "I know exactly what I've taken on," Jake replied before Lily May could speak. "The most wonderful woman in the world, including her debts." Victoria stepped forward, her smile sharp. "All $800 of them, including everything," Jake said firmly. "That's what marriage means, for better or worse, for richer or poorer." "How noble," Victoria sneered. "And how convenient for her." "That's enough." Ruth Callahan's voice cut through the tension like a blade. She stepped forward, her expression fierce. "This young woman has just gotten married, and instead of offering congratulations, you're standing here like vultures trying to pick apart her happiness." "Mrs. Callahan," Mayor Blackwood began, but Ruth held up a hand. "I'm not finished. I've watched this town treat Lily May like dirt for years, and I've kept quiet because it wasn't my place. But she's family now, and I protect my family." "Family," Victoria laughed. "She's a fortune hunter who trapped your foreman into marriage. She's a woman who's worked herself to the bone trying to pay off her father's debts." Ruth shot back. "A woman who's shown more grace and dignity than any of you have ever displayed. And yes, she's family, now my family. Which means her debts are my concern." Ruth reached into her handbag and pulled out a leather folder. "Mr. Peterson, I believe this belongs to you." The bank manager, who had been lurking at the edge of the crowd, stepped forward nervously. "What is it, Mrs. Callahan?" "A bank draft for $800, Ruth said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Payment in full, for the Thornton debt." The crowd gasped. Lily May felt her knees go weak. "Ruth, no," she whispered. "You can't." "I can, and I will," Ruth said firmly. "Consider it a wedding gift. And an investment in the future of this town's new school teacher." Mayor Blackwood's face went from purple to white. "You can't just I can and I did," Ruth interrupted. "The debt is paid. The marriage is legal. And anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me." The crowd began to murmur, some people looking ashamed, others nodding in approval. Victoria Blackwood looked like she'd swallowed a wasp. "This isn't over," she hissed. "Yes, it is," Jake said quietly, but his voice carried across the street. "It's over, Miss Blackwood. Lily May is my wife now, and she's under my protection. And Ruth, and the protection of every decent person in this town who's tired of your family's bullying. Several people in the crowd nodded in agreement. Mrs. Patterson stepped forward. Congratulations, dear, she said to Lily May. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Other voices joined in congratulations, well wishes, apologies for past slights. The tide was turning, and the Blackwoods found themselves increasingly isolated. Come on, Jake said softly to Lily May. Let's go home. Home. The word filled her with warmth and possibility. As they walked away from the church, Lily May felt the weight of her past falling away like chains. She was Mrs. Jake Sullivan now, beloved wife, future teacher, woman of worth. The girl who had been pushed into the mud was gone forever. In her place stood a woman who had found her strength, her voice, and her place in the world. 6 months later, Lily May stood in the doorway of the small schoolhouse, watching her students' children of ranch hands, homesteaders, and farmers bent over their slates, working on arithmetic problems. The autumn sun streamed through the windows, casting golden light across the room she had transformed into a place of learning and laughter. Mrs. Sullivan, 8-year-old Tommy Henderson raised his hand. I finished my sums. Can I help Sarah with hers? Of course, Tommy. Thank you for being so helpful. Lily May smiled as she watched the boy move to sit beside Sarah, a shy girl whose family had recently settled in the valley. In the months since the school had opened, she'd seen these children blossom, their confidence growing as they learned to read and write and dream of futures beyond the limitations their circumstances might have suggested. The sound of horse hooves outside made her look up. Through the window, she could see Jake approaching, his workday finished at the ranch. Her heart still fluttered at the sight of him, even after 6 months of marriage. All right, children, she called. Let's clean up our slates and get ready to go home. The students bustled about, gathering their belongings and saying their goodbyes. Lily May had learned each of their names, their struggles, their dreams. She saw herself in many of them children, who needed someone to believe in them, to show them that their circumstances didn't define their potential. See you tomorrow, Mrs. Sullivan, Sarah called as she ran to meet her older brother. See you tomorrow, sweetheart. When the last child had gone, Jake appeared in the doorway, his hat in his hands, his smile warm and familiar. How was school today? He asked, crossing the room to pull her into his arms. Wonderful, Lily May said, melting into his embrace. Tommy Henderson helped 3 different students with their lessons, and Sarah read an entire paragraph aloud without stumbling once. And their teacher, Lily May said, standing on her toes to kiss him, is the luckiest woman in the world. Jake's arms tightened around her. I'd argue that title belongs to her husband. They walked home together to the small cabin they'd built on the edge of Ruth's property, close enough to the schoolhouse for convenience, but far enough away to feel private. The cabin was simple but comfortable, filled with books and photographs and the small treasures they'd collected together. Ruth stopped by the ranch today, Jake said as they settled on the porch swing he'd built for her. She wanted to know if we'd given any thought to her suggestion. Lily May's hand moved unconsciously to her still flat stomach. About the baby. About expanding the school. She thinks there's enough demand now to justify a larger building. Maybe even bringing in another teacher. And what do you think? Jake was quiet for a moment, his arm around her shoulders, his thumb stroking her upper arm. I think we should wait and see what the future brings. We've got time to make those decisions. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the valley. In the distance, Lily May could see the lights of Copper Ridge beginning to twinkle. The town that had once seemed so hostile now felt like home. Do you ever think about that day? Jake asked suddenly. The day we met. Every day, Lily May admitted. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if you hadn't been there. But I was there, Jake said firmly. I was exactly where I needed to be, when I needed to be there. Do you think it was fate? Jake considered this. I think it was grace. The kind of grace that takes to broken people and shows them how to be whole together. Lily May turned in his arms to face him. Are we whole? Aren't we? Jake's eyes searched hers. I know I've never felt more complete than I do right now, sitting here with you, even with all the challenges. The debt, the gossip, the way people still sometimes look at us, especially with all the challenges, Jake said. Easy things don't teach you anything. Hard things teach you what you're made of. And what are we made of? Jake's smile was soft and sure. Love, stubbornness, the determination to build something beautiful out of the pieces we were given. As if summoned by his words, a rider approached their cabin. Lily May tensed, old fears dying hard. But Jake's hand on her shoulder was steady. "It's just Tommy's father," he said. "Probably wants to talk about the harvest." But as Mr. Henderson dismounted, his expression was serious. "Jake, Lily May, I'm sorry to bother you, but I thought you should know. Victoria Blackwood's getting married." "Good for her," Jake said carefully. "Though I'm not sure why that concerns us. She's marrying that banker's son from Denver. Big wedding planned for next month." Mr. Henderson paused, looking uncomfortable. "Word is, they're planning to leave Copper Ridge right after moving to Denver permanently." Lily May felt a weight she hadn't realized she'd been carrying lift from her shoulders. That's wonderful news." "Figured you'd want to know," Mr. Henderson said. "The whole family's going, from what I hear. Mayor Blackwood's selling his businesses and following his daughters to the city." After Mr. Henderson left, Jake and Lily May sat in silence, processing the news. "How do you feel?" Jake asked. "Free," Lily May said simply. "For the first time in my life, I feel completely free. No regrets." "About what?" "About the mud. About the humiliation. About the way they treated me." Lily May shook her head. "If none of that had happened, I never would have met you. I never would have become who I am now. And who are you now?" Lily May thought about the question, about the journey from that terrible day in the town square to this moment on her porch with the man she loved. "I'm a woman who knows her worth," she said finally. "A woman who's learned that love isn't something you have to earn, it's something you accept and give freely. I'm a teacher, a wife, a member of this community. I'm someone who was broken and became whole, who was lost and found her way home. And I'm the luckiest man alive," Jake said, pulling her close as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Lily May reflected on the strange turns her life had taken. The girl who had been pushed into the mud was gone, replaced by a woman who had learned to stand tall, to love deeply, and to believe in the possibility of happily ever after. The townspeople who had once looked down on her now sent their children to her school, trusting her with their most precious gifts. The debts that had once seemed insurmountable were paid. The shame that had once defined her was transformed into strength. "Thank you," she whispered to Jake. "For what?" "For seeing me. For choosing me. For helping me up when I was down and holding me close when I needed it most." Jake's arms tightened around her. "Thank you for letting me." In the distance, the church bell chimed the hour, marking another day in their new life together. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, new opportunities to build the life they dreamed of. But tonight, sitting on their porch swing under a canopy of stars, Lily May knew she had everything she'd ever wanted. Love that was real and lasting. A home that was truly hers. A future full of endless possibility. The cowboy who had helped her up from the mud had done more than rescue her. He had shown her how to rescue herself. And in the end, that made all the difference. They had thrown her into the mud, but she had risen from it stronger, wiser, and more whole than she had ever been before. The woman who sat in Jake's arms bore little resemblance to the broken girl who had once cowered before the town's judgment. This was her true satisfaction, not revenge against those who had wronged her, but the deep, abiding contentment of a life well lived and love well found. The mud had washed away, but the love remained, as permanent and beautiful as the stars above. "I love you, Mrs. Sullivan," Jake murmured against her hair. "I love you too, Mr. Sullivan," she replied, her voice strong and sure. "Forever and always." And, in the quiet peace of their mountain valley, surrounded by the life they had built together, Lily May knew with absolute certainty that some stories really do have the happiest of endings.